Iawn, bore da pawb, a croeso cynnes i chi gyd yma. In opening the meeting this morning of the Planning, Taxi Licensing and Rights of Way Committee, I'd like to welcome everyone here. There are members in the chamber, there are members online, and also we have a number of officers with us today. A warm welcome to the officers in the back who are joining us, and any officer who will be taking part, I will introduce them as we go through today's agenda. So swiftly moving along, apologies and roll call, please. Carol.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Gareth D. Jones.
Yma.
Councillor Adrian Jones.
Present.
Councillor Tom Colbert.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Angela Davis, who's at a D-Day commemoration service. Councillor Deb Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Claire Hall.
Present.
Councillor Peter James. Councillor Ed Jones.
Present.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones is abroad, and we have permission to bring him in. So if he is online, I'll try and bring him in before we start the first application. Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
Present.
Councillor Carl Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Morgan. No. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Present.
Councillor Edwin Roderick. No. Apologies from Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor Hugh Williams.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carol. Moving on, item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I believe these are on pages 5, 6 and 7 and 8 of our pack. I'm looking for a proposer, please, for accuracy. A proposer and seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jonathan. Thank you, Councillor Peter. I'll take it by every silence that we're all happy to accept these minutes for accuracy. Thank you.
Councillor Hugh, there are.
Diolch. Councillor Hugh.
Yeah, just for admin purposes, there are a couple of typos on page 8 under the enforcement update. It's a trivial matter, but it's just to note there's a couple in paragraph, in the second paragraph and in the last paragraph. But please move on, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'm sure Carol will just amend those slightly and we'll move on. Diolch yn fawr iawn, thank you. We also have the minutes for accuracy to approve, please. It was held on the 30th of May last week. So for accuracy, again, I'm looking for a proposer, please. Councillor Adrian, thank you. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jonathan. Any comments from anyone? Or are we happy to accept them for accuracy? I'll take your silence as that. Thank you very much. Right, item number 3 before us this morning, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest from members relating to items to be considered on the agenda. Councillor Adrian, please.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'd like to declare an interest in application 24/0251/full.
Thank you, Councillor Adrian. Councillor Jonathan.
Yeah, likewise, I have to declare an interest in agenda item 4.3, 24/0251/full Dublin Mileage as the owner of the property.
Thank you very much. Anybody else under declarations A? No. B, to receive members' requests that a record be made of their membership of town or community councils where discussions have taken place of matters for the consideration of this committee. I don't believe we have any. C, to receive declarations from members of the committee that they will be acting as a local representative in respect of an individual application before being considered by the committee. Again, I don't believe we have any. And finally, to note the details of members of the county council who are not members of this committee who will be acting as a local representative in respect of an individual application being considered today by the committee. Councillor Arwell Jones, thank you very much. Right, moving on to the business of the meeting, planning applications to be considered. 4.1, updates were emailed out yesterday, I believe, Carol. Have all members had a chance to read the updates? I take it by everyone nodding that you all have had an opportunity and that you are happy for me to move on. Right, item number 4.2, land at Laburnum House, Bryn Mawr, Llanymynech. It's on pages 13 to 46 of our agenda pack. And officer who is going to be guiding us through the application is Kate Boyne. So Kate, all over to you, please. Just having a couple of issues sharing the screen. Everyone happy that everyone can see it at the screen at home? Thank you, Hugh. All yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and members of the public. So application 24279 full is for the siting of 4 geodome tents on decking areas and installation of 4 number associated decking areas for outdoor seating, baths and barbecue areas, siting of 3 number geotents and decking areas retrospectively in the relocation of 1 existing geotent tent and associated decking area. It also includes a retrospective formation of access pathways and car parking, proposed installation of 4 structures to house toilet facilities, installation of a sewage treatment plant and the construction of 2 passing places at Laburnum House, Bryn Mawr, Llanymynech.
Kate, could you just pause for a second, please, when we try and bring in the agent, if that's okay? Mr. Oliver Evans. We're trying to bring him in. Can you hear everything, Mr. Evans? Is he with us, Carol? Yes,
Yes, he is.
thank you. Sorry for that delay, Kate.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Right, yeah, so this slide shows the application site. It's located in the open countryside, approximately 1 kilometre northwest of Four Crosses in the area known as Bryn Mawr. This slide shows the application site edged in red and the applicant's land ownership edged in blue. The public rights of way are shown dashed green. This slide shows the proposed site. Obviously, as mentioned previously, it's the siting of 4 domes, which have a 6-metre diameter and 3.5 metres in height. They're sort of domed frames with a vinyl covering on top, and they're sited on top of timber decking. There's toilet structures for each dome and outdoor baths on some decking, and they're proposed to be screened by fencing and hedging. There's a small solar array for each dome as well. The proposed planting is shown on this slide in green. It's hedges and trees. Some of the existing vegetation is also shown in black. The parking is located next to an existing building in the southern part, just above the highway. If you can see that, I'm just pointing to the parking area with the cursor. And the access is located in the southern part of the slide, just where my cursor is pointed now. So I will pause there now for speakers.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have 4 public speakers with us this morning. And the first to speak, please, is County Councillor Arwel Jones. If you kindly take a seat up here, and you have 5 minutes to speak, and you may start when you're ready. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I refer to the application for 4 geodome tents and associated works. This is an application following a refused retrospective planning application, which over the past 12 months has commenced without planning permission. Following the refusal of the application in January 2024, the applicants were given until the 20th of February 24 to remove the structures. One was removed, and the others remain in situ to this day. Reason for refusal of the application: adverse impact on the landscape, and 2, failed to demonstrate adequate sewage and waste disposal. The proposed development does not contribute towards the preservation of local distinctiveness. The site does benefit from an existing annex holiday let, which was agreed in November 19, and a further 3 wooden cabins, which was agreed in July 2022. The cabins, to my knowledge, have not been occupied due to the non-compliance of building regulations. There are many reasons to reject this application: impact on highways, parking, does not allow safe and efficient flow of traffic, landscape, to name a few. But members only have to read the representations in the officer's report, which highlights the concerns of local residents. It mentions 2 additional passing places, which are in the wrong place completely. They should be on the narrow section of the unclassified road, of the unclassified single track road, but this would not be possible. Going on to the development of the plastic domes, the only difference with the previous rejected application is that one geodome has been relocated, and that they are now going to paint the canvases green to reduce visual impact. I don't believe that the agent and the applicant have addressed the landscaping issues with these proposed slight changes. Outside bathing areas are on the decking area, which is visible to the adjoining properties. I personally would not be happy sitting in my garden with a holidaymaker taking a bath a few meters away in the adjoining field. If you check on document SK08, Amendment D Planting Plan, and the application dated the 17th of May 24, you will think with the existing hedges and the additional planting that they would not be visible. But what it does not show is that the steep gradient of the field and that the domes are visible to adjoining properties. It mentions in the report also that the occupiers will continue to have an open and attractive outlook, but it's the adjoining properties nearby that will be affected. 2 other speakers will give further detail, but given the above, I would urge members to either refuse or certainly defer the application pending a site meeting to clarify the view of the proposed site and the narrow unclassified single track road, which is access to the site. This would give members a much better picture of the issues which are not highlighted in the report. I am sure that you have seen the photographs sent to you prior to the meeting, which again highlights the issues of the narrow single track access. If the applicants want additional holiday lets, I cannot understand why he hasn't concentrated on the existing arrangements for the 3 cabins. So can I thank members for your time this morning? Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Diolch i chi, Councillor Errol Jones. Thank you very much. Next speaker we have is Carol Davis, speaking on behalf of the Community Council. Carol. Just for members' information, we do have officers with us today. We have Mr. Simon Crew from Highways and Dan Stuckich from the Environmental Health as well, if members so wish to use the time to question them later. Carol, if you are ready, the time is yours, and you also have 5 minutes in which to speak. Diolch.
Good morning, members, and thank you for letting me, as a representative of Llandyssilio Community Council, address the Planning Committee today. What councillors are concerned about is the impact on the landscape, insufficient parking space and the extra traffic. They want to safeguard and protect the existing amenities and the existing residents. You will have been told that planning permission has already been granted for 3 holiday lodges. How can we stress enough that this is the maximum that should be allowed in this location due to the constraints of a narrow single track lane with limited passing places? Yes, you can always request another couple of passing places, but in reality, motorists using these facilities are not used to reversing around blind corners to find these passing places. It is also important to note that no guaranteed location has yet been found for these bays, so it is not acceptable to grant permission today and simply add a condition requesting that these be built. These domes appeared on our landscape as giant golf balls, visible for many miles around as they were so prominent. It is frankly ridiculous to now suggest that they can be coated in green paint. and that the applicant must ensure that these are maintained and repainted every 6 months. The only thing that we have learned in the last 9 months is that the applicant does not comply with any enforcement or planning conditions. He's been asked to dismantle the pods when the previous planning application was refused on the 20th of February and has only gone so far as removing the white plastic. What we will be left with is 4 mottled golf balls, which will have an unacceptable adverse impact on the landscape. The planning officer has not included in her report the concerns over whether there is adequate parking space, as the space allocated in this application is exactly the same space as that allocated to the holiday chalets. Plus, only 4 spaces have been identified, yet Environmental Health have requested that calculations should be done based on a maximum of 8 people. So surely there should be 8 parking spaces plus another 6 for the holiday chalets. Yes, we encourage tourism in our area, as witnessed by the several caravan parks and camping sites, but not tourism up a cul-de-sac with limited parking. At the bottom of the planning application, the applicant states that he looks forward to continuing to grow his business. What safeguards are there that if you grant permission today, that another 5 golf balls will not appear on our horizon? It has taken 9 months for this planning application to come before you today, as planning enforcement is lengthy and often considered not expedient. In other words, why should Powys County Council spend money on protecting the hamlet of Bryn Mawr and its residents? Powys County Council will need to employ another enforcement officer simply to look into the breaches that will arise from the development if permission is granted today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Carol Davis. Our next speaker, please, is Mr. Tim Penny. Mr. Penny, you 2 or 5 minutes to speak, and you may start when you are ready. Diolch.
Good morning. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I'll just give you a little bit of my background. Born and bred in Welshpool, 5th, 6th generation of that family. My wife, her family are, I think, 5th generations of farming families in Llanymynech. They bought quite a sizable chunk of Bryn Mawr in the early 50s. We were fortunate enough to obtain planning permission to build a house on Bryn Mawr in the mid-80s. We moved there. I've worked nationally, but I've lived locally all my life. We then subsequently moved into the property known as Anniff, which is now at the bottom of Bryn Mawr. It is at the dead end. Although highways do advise
Penny,
me that...
can I advise you that you're using up your 5 minutes, and
Yes.
it'd be beneficial if you get to...
Yes, I'm quite all right.
Okay, cheers.
We live at the bottom of the Green Lane, at the end of the lane, at the top of the Green Lane. Highways say that the Green Lane is passable by 4x4s, but it isn't. So everything that comes down the U2226 goes back the same way. There's 11 houses on Bryn Mawr. I have spoken to the owners of 8 of these properties, and they are all against the development going on. The new retrospective planning has come in that they're going to paint them green. A little bit of history. I know an awful lot about paint. I know that paint will not stick on those canvases. It will stick there for a very limited time. The applicant has got an extremely good history of not complying with things. There are a number of breaches that he has. He has an annex in his house that he had planning permission for a holiday let. It is now a residential let and has been for 5 years. It's been reported to planning, but nothing is done about it. The cabins that has been brought upon with Carol and Erwell, they're just going there, they're sitting rotting, nothing is being done. No planting that should have been done over 18 months ago has been done. The situation for the septic tank that he is now proposing, there is no way that any vehicle can get to that septic tank other than a tractor and a trailer. It's not a good way, and there are natural streams running under that ground. But my main concern is the highway, which Carol has touched on. It just is not suitable for any more traffic. You have allowed one annex to be let as a holiday let. You have allowed 3 holiday lets in the cabins, which can go on because they're done. And you have allowed another holiday let. There is planning for another holiday let on the 226 at Corner House. That hasn't been developed, but the planning is there and it has been granted, so it can be developed. That is doubling the size of the traffic down the 226 and the 225. And there's countless numbers of accidents on these roads. So I very much hope that you will vote to reject the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Penny, for your time. And our final speaker this morning on this application is the agent, Mr. Oliver Evans. He's online. Mr. Evans, are you able to speak? If you are, you too have 5 minutes and may start when we're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Oliver Evans and working for Morris Marshall and Poole, acting as the agent on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Pownall at Laburnum House. As you know, in September 23, Mr. and Mrs. Pownall submitted a retrospective plan application for the installation of 4 geodome tents. They were unfortunately refused in February 24. From reading Catherine James's delegated report at the time, she considered that the development was one which was acceptable under the tourism facility, but noted there were 2 main points for refusal. The first point was due to the adverse impact upon the landscape. As you can see from our proposal, we are now proposing to paint them green with a special canvas paint, which will be topped up every 6 months and is specifically designed for outdoor use. The main aim for this was to blend the geodome tents in. There was concerns raised about the white golf ball look, so hopefully the green will blend them into the landscape. As well as this, we propose some new planting across the site, which will break it all up and improve the visual impacts. As well as this, the new planting will help enhance the biodiversity across the site as outlined within the Green Infrastructure Statement. The final point which we've made to reduce the adverse impact upon the landscape was to move the hilltop dome. Previously, this was sited on top of the hill and above the other 3. It was in close proximity to Bryn Mawr Camp. You'll see that the dome has now been moved down the site, which reduces the visual impact upon the landscape and erases any issues relating to monument MG 158. The second point of concern within Catherine James's delegate report was the method of foul drainage. As you're aware, originally the application proposed for the use of compost toilets with the spreading of solid compost across the applicant's land. However, we accepted the concerns raised and addressed it by following the Welsh Government Circular 008/2018 and went on to propose the installation of a suitably sized package treatment plant, which would discharge all clean effluent into a closed loop drainage field. As per protocols required, the necessary percolation tests were undertaken, which proves that the field can correctly drain with that system. I believe there was a few complaints about the position of the test holes being in the wrong place, but after environmental health officer's visit to the site, he concluded that they were positioned correctly and that there was sufficient space available for the implementation of the treatment plant and its drainage field. We understand this has resolved issues surrounding Catherine's previous report with receiving the backing of NLW and environmental health. There have also been a number of complaints from neighbouring properties in regard to the increase in traffic due to the development. However, we have looked to address any issues raised with the highways officer and are proposing the construction of 2 passing bays, which we're hoping to agree through condition approval after this application. I think, as you can see from Mr. Cruz, from his report, he is confident that there is 2 locations on the site which can be used for the correct passing bays. You'll also see that we're proposing the installation of 2 EV charging spots, which will help the site and development meet EV charging strategy for Wales. And you'll also see that there is ample room around the site or around the area where we're proposing for the car parking to be positioned for further parking if necessary. The final point to raise
Oliver, you've
is
got 56 seconds left.
That's fine, thank you. The final point to raise is the proposed screening of the outdoor baths. I understand there's been, again, a number of complaints around these, and we have proposed some much improved planting and screening around these baths. As you can see from revision D of the geodome plans, we're proposing a 1.8 native hedgerow planting and 1.8 metre high closed boarded fence, which should provide ample screening around all areas. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I look forward to hopefully a positive outcome with the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. That
Thank you.
concludes our public speakers this morning. I'd now like to hand back to Kate to take us through her report and to her recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just before we start, just to advise members, we have received an additional public representation of objection this morning. We have read and taken note of the contents of that letter, and I will address some of the points further within my presentation. So as noted by the speakers, the previous application was refused on 2 grounds, one being the landscape impact and 2 being inadequate provision for foul drainage. The principle of development was considered acceptable in that previous application and is still considered acceptable now because LDP policy TD1 for tourism development supports tourism development in the open countryside of Powys. The policy does refer in particular to situations where tourism accommodation facilities, etc., may be particularly supported, such as supporting an agricultural holding or existing tourism accommodation. However, the policy does not preclude tourism development by you if you're not in connection with those sort of existing facilities. So tourism developments in the open countryside are supported via LDP policy TD1, subject to considerations such as landscape impact. This slide shows Hilltop Dome, the most northerly proposed dome. This is the dome that's proposed to be relocated to the lower position to the east. So if I just refer back to the previous slide, the previous location is shown on the slide on the left of the slide, just edged in black, and it does say previous position of Hilltop Dome. The proposed position is to the northeast slightly and obviously labelled Hilltop Dome. So that's the relocated dome. This slide also indicates, as do the other slides you will see, the window visibility in red dashed. So occupiers of the dome, that is the window visibility, obviously with the view coming out of the window. The existing and proposed planting is also shown in more detail on this slide. So you've got proposed planting, green circled hedgerows, and existing landscaping hedgerows and trees edged in black. This slide shows the floor plans and elevations of Hilltop Dome. Obviously there you can see the decking as a square, the dome as a circle, and the separate toilet block. This is the most southerly positioned dome, Oak Tree Dome. There's existing trees to the east. This is the dome that is closest to the neighbouring properties to the south. This slide also shows the location of the proposed treatment plant. So obviously, as you heard from the speakers, the foul drainage has been amended from the previously proposed compost toilets to a proposed sewage treatment plant. Drainage field calculations and percolation test results have been received and reviewed by Environmental Protection, Environmental Health and Natural Resources Wales. An environmental health officer visited the site and inspected the test holes. Members of the public have referred to a spring being in the vicinity of the proposed treatment plant. The environmental health officer has advised that there is no reference to such a spring on the maps in their possession, and they did not note such when they were on site. However, they have advised that if there is a spring in the location, the building regulations require that the drainage system is at least 10 metres away from a spring. It is assumed, obviously also the speaker mentioned that it would be difficult to empty the treatment plant. It's assumed that emptying would be carried out, as I suspect it is across a lot of Powys, i.e. via a lorry with a pipe. This slide shows obviously floor plan and elevations of Oak Tree Dome, very similar obviously to the previous. This is the most westerly dome, Meadow Dome. Obviously there's some, so this slide shows Hillside Dome. So obviously this is between Hillside Dome and Hilltop and Oak Tree Domes, and it benefits from screening of trees to the east and hedges. And there is the elevations and floor plan for Hillside Dome. This is Meadow Dome, which is the most westerly dome, with some proposed planting to the south. And again, elevations and floor plan for Meadow Dome. This slide shows the proposed toilet block, which is a timber structure, and there would be one adjacent to each dome. This slide shows the proposed planting in a bit more detail. We have recommended a condition for the proposed planting, but this slide just gives you an idea of in green what is proposed and in black what is existing. This slide shows the constraints of the site. So the application site is shown with the red arrow and annotated. The Scheduled Ancient Monument is to the left, hashed blue. Ancient woodland areas are dotted green. The area is dotted green. The public right-of-ways are dashed black. There's obviously one travelling through the site, originating at the site access. The highway, the U226 highway, is shown pink, which provides access to the site. So it is an unclassified road. And as the speaker mentioned, past the site is pink dashed line, which indicates, according to our system, that the highway is an unclassified and unsurfaced highway. The black dots in the bottom left of the slide indicate the 3 listed buildings at Brynmawr Farm, which are referred to in the report. In terms of setting or impact on the setting of those listed buildings, the intervening built form and topography blocks the views, and it's considered there's no harm to the setting. And we have considered the requirement to have special regard to the desirability of preserving the setting of the listed buildings in accordance with Section 66 of the Planning and Listed Building and Conservation Areas Act 1990. And then in terms of the scheduled monument, obviously shown hashed blue there. Views are blocked by topography and vegetation, as confirmed by CADU in the previous application. The Hilltop Dome is being relocated further away from the scheduled monument, and therefore we consider that there's no further impact, unacceptable impact upon the setting of the scheduled monument by the proposed changes. So I've got a series of slides here, which I took when I drove to the site, so along the U225 and U226 highways. This slide shows the highway, the U225 highway, close to the junction with the B4393 highway, travelling towards the site. This is a bit further along that highway. Obviously, as you can see, it is a highway typical of many in Powys, which is narrow, with fairly limited passing places. Further along the U225 towards the site, and again further along the U225. This is travelling down towards the junction with the U226, and then this is at the junction or approaching the junction with the U226. Here I am now on the U226. So this is the highway, which then ends up being an unsurfaced highway just past the site. Further along the U226 highway, and this is where I've arrived at the site access. So here, visitors to the site would turn left into the site. And this slide just shows the view back up to the access from the U226 highway. Yeah, so in terms of highway access, obviously, Highway Authority have not objected to the development, subject to the provision of 2 passing bays proposed along the highway network. The Highway Authority are confident that 2 passing bays, 2 suitable and appropriate passing bays can be located, and have recommended a condition to that effect. The Highway Authority did not object to the previously refused application, and obviously have continued their position of no objection. So they've not objected in terms of highway safety, access or parking provision. This slide shows the site itself, looking southeast to the existing chalets, from the existing chalet. So I was standing close to the existing chalets and close to the route of the public right of way. In terms of amenity, so obviously you can see the neighbouring properties in the distance there, and the 2 domes in the front here. In terms of amenity, and in terms of amenity to the neighbouring properties, all the domes are over 50 metres distance from the neighbouring properties. And the windows of each dome, as shown on the previous slide by the red dashed area, would be positioned away. The proposed fencing around the outside baths has been proposed at a height of 1.5 metres, and additional screening has been proposed. So therefore, in terms of privacy outlook and noise impacts, these are all considered acceptable to officers, subject to conditions for example, for the installation of the fences and proposed planting. This is from inside the site itself. Just showing this would be the site of Hilltop Dome, obviously looking down to the valley there. As you can see, the site is sloping. This site shows Meadow, Hillside and Oak Tree domes from the south. So the residential properties are in at the rear of me as I was taking a photograph here. But I was standing in the field between properties and the highway and the chalets. So here I've just taken some longer view shots so you can consider landscape impact. This is the view from the B4393 highway, so the road between Four Crosses and Llansanfraid. You can just see the chalets by the yellow arrow, so the existing chalets. The Scheduled Ancient Monument is sort of behind, sort of in amongst the trees at the backdrop there. This is again a view from along the B4393 highway. And again, it's a sunnier day this time, so you can see the chalets there, quite close to the yellow arrow. Another shot just from the B4393 highway, showing the view. This is the site. I was walking along the Montgomery Canal path here, and it's also designated as Offa's Dyke National Trail. So obviously the yellow arrow shows the site. And again, another view of the site from Montgomery Canal and Offa's Dyke, with the site shown in yellow. Just another one along the canal there as well. So in terms of landscape impact, the site is located in a rural area on the eastern side of a hill with a hill foot on the hill. The site is visible from rights of way, highways and Montgomery Canal as it's located on an open aspect on a slope. As we've heard from the speakers, to seek to overcome the previous concerns in respect of landscape impact, the application proposes a relocation of the hilltop dome lower down the slope, painting of the vinyl covering green rather than the current light grey, and additional planting. Officers have concluded that these measures are sufficient to overcome the previous refusal reason on landscape impact grounds. So in summary, the principle of tourism is supported by local and national planning policy, and it's considered that the amendments to the scheme have overcome the previous reasons for refusal. Therefore, the recommendation is one of conditional consent as set out in the officer's report. Thank you.
No, I don't think you're not allowed to come back. I'm sorry, Admiral. I'm sorry. There's nothing within planning committee that allows anybody to come back at the officers. I do apologise for that, but I'm right, aren't I, Rachel? So I can't allow anyone back in. Apologies, but that is where we stand today. Thank you very much, Kate, for your report. Just before we move on to questions from members, Councillor Jeff Morgan, I think you joined us halfway through the officer presentation. So just to remind you that you won't be able to speak or vote on this application. And Carol has informed me that unfortunately Councillor Gareth E. Jones has not been able to join us, so he's not present at the meeting. Right, members, I'm in your hands. I'm looking for who. I've lost my Councillor Gareth Pugh. I've got, and then Councillor Peter James, please. So Councillor Gareth Pugh, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just before we start and open this debate, I just wanted to declare that I have received a package in the post this week from one of the objectors. I just want to make it clear that I have. I don't know, has anybody else received it, or have you received one yourself? And if so, is it something that should be?
Councillor Gareth, I think we all did. And as protocol states, we should have just dismissed it as we would be predetermined had we read that. So hopefully all members have abided by that.
Come in, Chair.
Yeah.
Quickly, if I may. Yeah, we've had correspondence forwarded to myself. So just really a reminder, I think the one I've had this morning, I've shared it with officers, so we've seen it. It contained 2 letters from residents. Just a reminder, when we do have them, please send them on because we need to see them. They arrived, I think the ones we had this morning, we haven't seen until this morning. So last minute scramble from our side. So just a polite reminder, please send them in because we need to see them. Okay, but we've seen those.
Thank you very much.
Yes, just to confirm then, Chair, that doesn't make there's no bearing on us making decisions today, no?
No, we've read them. I think Kate's addressed the points through a presentation. It may inform questions for you to ask us as officers now anyway. So if there's any clarification points, it's really back to you, Chair, to manage that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thanks. I just wanted to clear it up. Thank you.
You've got no questions, Councillor Gareth. You just wanted to state that.
Yeah, just before we start. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, Councillor Peter James, please.
Thank you, Chair. And can I thank Kate for a presentation as well? I've got a couple of observations. One being that is there any provision for grey water to be used on this site? Because there is quite a resource on the 11 homes and the Brimell Reservoir. And I'm just wondering how much water is needed to be used by the actual pods that they're putting up. And are the toilets now, because they were going to be soil fed, are they now connected to the mains, or are they, where's that water coming from to feed those toilets?
Thank you, please, Kate.
As far as I understand it, so concerns have been raised during the application process in terms of potentially the reservoir near to the site. drying up in the summer months. So I did clarify with Hafren Dyfrdwy if they were aware of this or had any comments in that respect, and they responded by saying that any new connections they would consider, and if they need to upgrade, they would program it in, as far as I understand it. They didn't raise any concerns in terms of this development. I wouldn't obviously be able to clarify how much water is proposed for the use. However, obviously there's 4 outside baths that will use a quantity of water, as we all know. And I assume they will be connected to the mains water. But yeah, each individual toilet would be, the outfall would be piped to the treatment plant.
Can I just come back on that one as well? Under the climate change, you know, it's trying to sort of reserve water, and that's why I'm quite interested in the grey water situation. But with like sort of hot tubs and things like that, is there any restriction on them? Because they are exchanged by, I think, law, they have to be drained down each time they're used by another person.
Peter, would you?
Well,
Yeah, you might.
yeah, from the planning side, I think we've got we haven't had any adverse comments, as Kate said. I was just checking Hafren Dyfrdwy's comments. That they've basically not raised any objection here. I think if there were issues, what they've said, just reading from their comment, they responded 8th of May. They expect or need a formal application to be made to them regarding water supply. So it's obviously controlled by another authority, not this authority. If there were capacity issues, they would have to be resolved through that. So again, the applicant will be listening. That's very much a matter that rests with them. If there was capacity issues, there might be something we could do, but they just haven't raised those here. So it might be that we seek further information or some form of reassurance, but they haven't raised an issue here. Okay.
Councillor Peter, are you content? Thank you. I think that'll be noted, yeah. Councillor Claire Hall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the presentation and the detailed report. I can see the differences between the previous scheme and the current one, but I've got a couple of questions arising from some of the issues raised by some of the speakers, mainly to do with the conditions, actually. So one is the provision of passing bays. I was a little bit concerned to sort of say that they weren't specified where they were going. So I think it's quite like some reassurance. Have we got an idea where they would be and whether the applicant is in a position to be able to deliver that from a land ownership and control of land point of view? And the other one is regarding the I'm assuming that the dark green condition is obviously part of the to make the landscape impact acceptable. Given what the objectives have said about previous non-compliance with conditions on the land, I'm just wondering whether or not condition 11, rather than just requiring it to be painted every 6 months, whether it could be worded to such a way that it requires that vinyl covering or external finish to be dark green and maintained that way. So we're not necessarily saying you have to keep painting, gives the applicant the option of maybe replacing the vinyl covering that was there before and just having a new one that is dark green, for example. And yeah, so those are my main points really, is a sort of location of the passing bays and how sure are we that we can maintain that sort of dark green impact from a visual point of view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clare. We do have Mr. Simon Crew with us from Highways. So would you be willing, please, to address Councillor Clare's concerns?
Sure, thanks, Chair. Yeah, as far as the Highway Authority are concerned, there's plenty availability within the highway verges to construct passing bays, and we don't offer conditions in scenarios where there isn't sufficient highway verge available. That answers your question.
So to clarify, you are content that there's enough place within the verges to be able to put the passing bays as required?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Sorry, councillor Clare, are you happy with that response?
Yeah, can I ask the officers on the green,
I'll come to your
external?
second question now.
Yeah, thank you.
That answers the first question, and then the second point raised was about condition number 11 and the green paint and the possibility of making it a green permanent green vinyl.
Yep, thank you for that question, councillor. Certainly we could consider amending the condition. I think your point related to, yeah, I get the point. If design is considered not, not to use the vinyl anymore, but maybe some other type of covering, that would just be green in colour. So yeah, we could amend the condition, I believe, with agreement to reflect that, if that's what members wish.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I think that would be beneficial. Councillor Clare, would you like to come back with that? Would that satisfy your concerns?
Yes, thank you. I just think it's just giving the applicant more options, and also maybe reassuring the objectors in terms of that long-term maintenance of that appearance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clare. Next, apologies, I've got these in the wrong order, but next on my screen is Councillor Deborah Edwards, followed by Councillor Adrian. Councillor Deborah, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to raise the parking facilities. A couple of the speakers did sort of put that in their worries and put it forward to us, that there will be sufficient parking spaces for the pods and whatever the other things that are already on site.
Who would like to
Sorry.
parking? Simon, thank you.
Yeah, there's sufficient land available within the application site for both the existing uses and the proposed development.
Councillor Deborah.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Sorry.
Does that conclude your question then?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yeah.
Right, move on, Councillor Adrian, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, mine is following up a bit around the car parking, because and the visual impact, because I can see that possibly cars are going to park by these pods in the summer weather. So it's going to add to the overall view and picture from a distance, not just the domes, but you're going to have possibly a couple of cars by each dome, shining in the sunlight. Is that something we could put in as a constraint? They are parked on site and not on the fields, because it will look like quite a lot, in my view.
Could you bring up the slide, Councillor, of where we are in relation to parking, in relation to where the domes are sited, and maybe we can get a better idea so that Councillor Adrian's concerns can be addressed.
So hopefully that slide probably shows it. So the parking, there's some cars shown. I think you can see my cursor. So there's some parking shown there above this existing building. Access is here. So that's the existing parking area. The idea is that people park there and then walk along these paths to get to each dome. These are pedestrian sort of pathways. I'm not aware that we can control that people don't drive over the fields to park next to the domes. The only thing I would say is I don't think, this is shown as they'd be quite pushed to maybe squeeze along that pathway. But we don't feel as officers that we can manage if people do wish to drive along over the fields to get there. But obviously it is set up that parking would be at that central location.
Okay. So we can't control it. So if it happens, it happens.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have we anybody else wishing to speak? Members, I'm in your hands. Councillor Karina, followed by Councillor Jonathan, please.
It says if members are minded to grant consent, conditions are recommended to remove permitted development rights. It says that in the text. does that mean that this is it? You can't add any more chalets? Or that's my first question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, what that means is we would normally attach these to every tourism accommodation. It means that because tourism accommodation is classed as a C3 residential use, so normal, it's so like a normal house really, but obviously this is not a normal house, but in a normal house, householders would have permitted development rights to construct extensions, sheds, etc. To safeguard obviously the size of these domes and additional, having additional structures on site, etc. We've recommended that those normal rights to erect extensions, outbuildings, etc. are removed, and that is quite normal for developments of this nature.
I just want to thank you very much. And just one other question. You mentioned that the septic tank well might be emptied by means of a pipe. Where is that point going to be on the plan?
I'm afraid I don't have that level of information. That's not the level of detail that we would request within an application process.
It was one of the objectors mentioned it. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Karina. Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've seen a history of a level of compliance in this application which has fallen short historically of what we'd normally expect as a planning authority. Are we to discount that in our considerations? I mean, or it's impossible not to imagine that poor compliance could continue in the future. And I'm thinking, for example, we've mentioned this before, the request to or requirement that the covers should be painted. I'm struggling at the moment in my mind to believe that would be adhered to by looking at previous behaviour, and that is a concern for me.
Thank you, Councillor Jonathan. Can I bring in Rachel to address this, please? I think if you share your concerns, and Rachel will address it now.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, you're reminded that obviously you are considering what's before you, the application before you, judging it on its own merits, irrespective of those other matters. So it's just what's before you.
Yeah, that is the correct advice. We've got to determine each application on its own merits in line with the policies of the development plan. So, and other material considerations. Other actions and other issues are outside of that at the moment. Wouldn't be appropriate to go through those now in this format, but if you need to know any information, I'm happy to speak afterwards. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Jonathan. I think perhaps we could look at like item 7 later and maybe look at our concerns. Councillor Jonathan, Councillor Gareth Pugh, please, and then I have Councillor Hugh Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think we've heard a good debate here now this morning, but yeah, when you're ready, I would go along with the officer's recommendation, that of conditional consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth Pugh. Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just a question really regarding the screening and the approved landscaping scheme. Could the officer sort of clarify exactly what's needed, because there's a five-year time limit before this matures to an extent where it will be of cover, and that condition needs to be held to, and I'm afraid the history indicates that may not be the case. Can the officer reassure me that the planting is adequate?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, you're correct. Obviously, it's proposed planting. We have recommended a sort of standard planting condition. My thoughts when you were speaking then is perhaps, again, perhaps we could amend the condition slightly to require more mature planting to go in the beginning. So obviously then it matures at a quicker rate, if that was sort of something that would address members' concerns in terms of landscape impact, because it is retrospective. I think that possibly could be justified. But I'll leave that up to you. But yeah, otherwise, I consider that additional planting has been proposed in this application from that proposed previously. Obviously, it's shown on the slide there, and I think we consider that will help to mitigate the landscape impact.
So Chair, can I come back? Can it be conditioned in that case that more mature trees are planted due to the fact that it is a retrospective one, and these should have gone in when the application should have been sent in?
Members, would you agree, would your wish be, if we were to approve this, or that condition suggested by Councillor Hugh and be put forward? I'm just looking, I can see some nodding heads here. Councillor Clay, yes, hand is up, so.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'd second what Councillor Hughes just said.
Yeah. Good. Have we got any other councillors wishing to speak on the matter? I can't see anybody. I've had a proposal.
Two amended conditions
And
then.
yeah, I've got a proposal. I'm in your hands, members. How do you wish to proceed? Mike, please.
Sorry, Chair. The other amended condition was the vinyl covering being of a green colour. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's been more definitive in what the colour must be. Yeah, and maintain that colour. Yeah. Okay, so there's two members. I've heard from the committee 2 suggested amendments. So I think.
Can I go back to Councillor Gareth Pugh and just confirm that with your proposal, you are happy to include the 2 amendments surrounding the vinyl, the colouring of it, and also the planting of more mature plants?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth.
Chair, in that case, it's Councillor Hugh. I'm willing to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hugh. So we've got a proposal, we've got a seconder. I think that's exhausted the debate here this morning. So in that case, Carol, are you happy to take it to the vote, please? There you are. It's in the chat box now at 11:12. I'll give everyone 20 seconds just to process the vote in. Right, I'll close the electronic vote. Has everyone had a chance to vote?
Yes, Chair. So 12 members are eligible to vote. And we've had 12 votes through on the system. So 9 members have voted for with the officer's recommendation with the additional conditions, no members against, and 3 abstentions.
Thank you very much, Carol. So we have approved the officer recommendation this morning in relation to the application before us. Can I thank members of the public who've given up the time and come here today? I appreciate you may not be happy with the results, but that is how we have concluded. So thank you very much to the officers as well for their time as well. Right, moving on to the second application before us this morning, 240279/FUL. Before we proceed, can I ask Councillor Jonathan and Councillor Adrian if you'd be so good as to leave the room as you have declared an interest? And can I also ask Rachel Mole just to talk us through the legalities of this application? Councillor Jeff, you are now able to take part in this. 2 councillors left the room. Rachel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say, given the reason why this application is before you this morning, I have an obligation to review the file to ensure it has been processed correctly, and I can confirm that to you this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. My apologies, members. I read out the wrong numbers before. This is for 240251 FUL Dufferin. Thank you, Rachel, just to confirm that.
Chair, can I also confirm that with the two councillors leaving the room, we are still quorate for this application?
Thank you. Good to know. So busy morning for Kate this morning. I believe she is also guiding us through this application. So Kate, in your good hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is an application for an extension to an existing agricultural building at Dufferin, Myford. The application site is located on the eastern side of the A495 highway, just to the southwest of Myford. You can see Myford indicated by the arrow on the screen, and the application site also. The proposed building measures approximately 42 metres by 18 metres and 4.7 metres in height to the ridge. This slide shows the application site edged in red, obviously just to the southeast of the existing group of agricultural buildings. Just to clarify as well, we have received a new application in the last couple of weeks for another building just adjacent to this proposed building, so just to the southwest, so it would be sited immediately adjacent to it. And just to advise members that to consider the application here before you on its merits. We haven't had any consultee comments on that other application to date. So we are considering just this application before us to date. This slide shows the proposed footprint of the building. This slide shows the floor plan, and it would be open-sided on one side. So it's a metal profile clad walls under a fibre cement sheeted roof, so fairly typical of agricultural buildings in Powys. This constraints map that shows the application site with the arrow in yellow. It is in the open countryside, but agricultural buildings are generally supported by planning policy. Myford obviously is shown to the northeast, so the top right of the slide. The black line shows the development boundary, and the blue within the development boundary is the conservation area of Myford. The listed buildings at Dufferin, there's 4 on the opposite side, so to the north, so on the sort of just on the road opposite, there's 4 listed buildings there at Dufferin. The blue across the site is the C2 flood zone. I couldn't show the new flood zones 2 and 3 of the new flood map for planning because it was too dark to even see the application site, but it generally follows the same line. It's slightly reduced from the edge of the C2 flood zone, but it does cover the application site and the surrounding area because the River Vyrnwy is on the right hand side of the slide. This slide shows the view from the A495 on the Myford side. So the building would be at the end of those buildings on the left hand side of the slide. This slide is taken from a bit of a field gate along the A495 with Dufferin Farmhouse and the associated listed buildings on the right side of the slide, and the A495 between the site or between the modern agricultural buildings and Dufferin. So in terms of the setting of the listed buildings, the Built Heritage Officer has provided comments and considers that because there's modern agricultural buildings between the site and the listed buildings, there will be no impact on the setting, and we've had special regard to the setting as required by the legislation. This is a Google Street View image of the A495 because it's quite a difficult road, very fast to get photographs, but obviously the complex is in the centre of the slide there, photograph with the buildings coming out to the rear of those buildings in the right hand side of the slide. This is the actual site itself, and the building would be attached to the existing building protruding out. And again, another Google Street View just closer to the access from the Myford side. So the access is on the left-hand side there to enter the site. And again, as travelling towards Myford, the access into the group of modern farm buildings is on the right-hand side. So in terms of access, the Highway Authority prepared an additional response in the update report, just clarifying there are no objection and there are no comments that they did not wish to comment because it's an extension to an existing agricultural building and farm complex, and it's not proposed to increase stock numbers. Therefore, there's considered no detrimental impact upon the highway network at this location. So the key issue for the application is the location within the C2 flood zone on the dam maps and the flood zones 2 and 3 of the flood map for planning rivers. It is classed as a low vulnerable use. However, Welsh Government guidance in the form of Technical Advice Note 15, flood risk, states that even low vulnerable developments are subject to justification, and therefore developments need to comply with that justification. So it is policy compliant in terms of the LDP. However, the Welsh Government guidance does say that development on brownfield sites, previously developed land, is preferred. Agricultural buildings and land are not considered to be previously developed land according to the guidance. However, in this case, NRW have advised that because it's an existing well-established farm complex, and because there's no detriment to third parties in terms of flood risk, and that it's difficult to quantify the loss of floodplain storage, and that there's limited opportunity to put a building elsewhere, because obviously, as we saw from the map, it's a large area within the flood risk, and otherwise across the road, you'd be taking dairy cows across the road, which has its own risks. Therefore, NRW haven't objected in terms of consideration of all the issues. And on the basis of NRW's advice, we consider that the level of flood risk is manageable and proportionate to the development being located at an existing farm. So in summary, the principle of the building is acceptable, as is the visual and landscape impact, ecological impact, as well as the impact on the historic environment, residential amenity and highway safety. Whilst it's not strictly previously developed land, in consideration of the information received justifying the location and the advice from Natural Resources Wales, it's considered that it's acceptable in terms of flood risk, and the recommendation is one of approval as set out within the officer's report.
Thank you very much, Kate, for your report. We have no speakers, so members, it's over to you. I can't see any hands up currently. Councillor Claire Hall, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Seconded, please, Chair.
Sorry, I missed that, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, I'd second that, please, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to contribute or ask any questions? I'm not missing any hands, am I, Carol? No. If everybody is quiet and content, we've had a proposal and a seconder. In that case, I'll ask Carol, can she please take it through to the electronic vote? There we are, members. It's in our chat box now. Hopefully you've all had a chance to see it. Yeah, we'll close the electronic vote and hand over to yourself, Carol, please.
Thank you, Chair. So 11 members eligible to vote. 11 have voted with the officer's recommendation, 0 against and 0 abstentions.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, we've gone with officer recommendation and approve the application 24/0251/FUL. Thank you again, Kate, for your work. Right, we'll pause for a few seconds to allow Councillor Jonathan and Councillor Adrian back in. Thank you all. I take it everyone's back in the room. Right, moving on swiftly now. We go to item 5 on our agenda, item 5 ar agenda, bore 'ma, decisions of the head of property, planning and public protection of delegated applications to receive the delegated list. Has anyone got any observations to make in relation to the delegated list, which are on pages 65 to 132? If not, can I have a proposal and a seconder that we receive these? Councillor Peter, thank you. Councillor Jonathan, thank you. I'll take it on silence that everyone is happy. Thank you very much all. Item number 6, moving on, the appeal decisions. I think there's one there. Peter will just give us a brief talk on that. We did say yesterday.
Yeah, it's an unusual one in the sense that it's a redetermined appeal decision by a planning inspector. So the first, we refused a certificate of lawfulness there. It was appealed. The appeal decision supported the authority's decision. It was then judicially reviewed. And that was successful, which then rewound the process back, and a second inspector has looked at it and redetermined the appeal and arrived at the same conclusion. So it supports the council's decision. It's an interesting one because it sort of relates to the importance of discharging conditions and the sensitivity of that particular environment when it comes to its landscape. So it's an interesting one. If you wanted to read one paragraph in particular, I'm not going to read it out, but I'd suggest having read paragraph 22 of that decision notice. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any observations from members, or are you happy to move on? I take it we're happy to move on. So final item before us this morning, planning protocol. Hopefully members will have received and read the email that Carol sent out on Tuesday. And there's some updates to that as well since that was originally sent out. So if I could hand over now to Rachel here, who will guide us through the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the planning protocol, as members may be aware, it is reviewed periodically as and when circumstances arise, which has been the case recently. So what you have before you are proposed amendments mainly to the call-in procedure for members. So currently, what we have is members are not entitled to make a request for call-in in relation to resubmitted applications unless there is a substantial change. What we are proposing is for that to be removed so that effectively you have the right to exercise the call-in for a resubmitted application. So that's the first proposed amendment. Then we have the position with regards to a councillor has exercised their call-in right, if you like, but then they have not been re-elected. So what we are proposing is that that is covered off in the protocol. So if you look here at 19.61, I would just further add to that to say where a councillor requests determination by the planning committee and at an election is not re-elected, what I would add is, or after a by-election is not re-elected, the new councillor for that ward shall be advised by the professional lead of the call-in and can either exercise the right to confirm the call-in or effectively withdraw it. And thirdly, it's just firming up on the public speaking procedures to make it clear that a physical presentation isn't permitted, but they can verbally refer to any plans or documents or what have you. Happy to take any questions on what is being proposed or clarify anything further.
Thank you, Rachel. Has everyone got sight of the paper? Are they all have that yet? Any questions coming from members in relation to the proposals for changing the protocol? Councillor Carl, please.
Thank you, Chair. This has come about from a few anomalies in my time in your position, and it just ties off a few loose ends, Chair, and I'll be happy to propose that this committee accepts them, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carl. Any other observation? Councillor Tom, please, and then Councillor Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. I think the first proposal was mentioned that call-in can be sort of reignited. I think that's maybe a little bit dangerous, because once it's come to the committee, often we get pressurized to take these things to committee, and they come to committee and there's a decision. I think the danger is if we can keep bringing it back, then we'll just keep getting constituents coming to us and saying, can you just keep putting this up until we get the right answer? So I think that's maybe something we need to think about.
I bring Peter in here, please.
Yeah, just come back, Chair, if I may. I think it's probably, from my perspective, it's a very positive move for members. This, it gives you more power, more ability to call in more applications. So it is about resubmitted applications. So with the call-in procedure, you're all notified of when an application arrives. So it's the same thing. The resubmitted application arrives with us. We undertake the consultation. As local members, you are all notified by email of that application. You then have 21 days within which to call it in and have to provide planning reasons for doing so. So previously, what we've done is said you can't call in a resubmitted application unless there's that substantial change to it, which has caused debate and discussion. It's caused it amongst officers, let alone between officers and members. And I just think this simplifies it, makes it much clearer. As members, you have the ability to withdraw call in as well. So if you weren't, if you're happy with the way it's heading, and the officer will be in contact with you and can advise you of the proposed decision or recommendation, you may wish to withdraw anyway. That's always your right. So I think it's just adding more power, as I say, to you as members when it comes to the call in, and takes away a discussion that's not really needed.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Tom, I'll allow you to come back.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Peter. That's a good point you make there. So thank you for that clarification. I think indeed one could take that route. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Councillor Jeff, please.
I'd like to second the proposal.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to ask any questions to Rachel or to Peter in relation to what we have here? If not, we've had a proposal and a seconder. Are we happy to take it by show of hands, Carol, or do you want to take it to do a vote, an electronic vote? Yeah. So if you would look in your chat again, it will shortly appear. There we go. At 11:33.
The Chair, 13 members eligible to vote, 13 for, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you very much, Carol, and thank you to Rachel and Peter and the team for putting that together, hopefully. Have a few more applications coming before our committee. Peter's asked me to remind you all that on Monday at 2 p.m. there's the LDP briefing. It'd be good if we had a strong representation from the planning committee there. Do you want to say anything more?
No, not I
Microphone.
would mind catching, catching chair of council afterwards if I can on that one, but that's fine. I think we've promoted it. Yeah, so it's a member seminar.
Thank you. And date of the next meeting, please. Carol?
Yes, Chair, the next meeting is on the 27th of June, and as previously advised last week, this will be an online meeting only because the chamber is being used by the election team. So it'll be online only.
That's it. So online for the meeting on the 27th of June. That concludes everything before us this morning. So all that's left to do, diolch yn fawr iawn I pawb am bod yma bore yma. Thank you all very much. And I close the meeting at 11:35. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diolch, Cadeirydd.